Hi guys, in this series of Node.js from zero to hero, we're going to create an MVC Crud application using Handlebars with Materialize and MySQL. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. To start with, I'll be using Materialize. Materialize is a modern responsive framework based on material design. So if you know Bootstrap, so this is the same as Bootstrap. But for this demo, this is a good start for us to learn new style of design. So yeah, we'll be using this one. And for our demo, okay, upon using Materialize, we'll be creating this example. Okay, and this is a responsive table. Let's say if I go into minimize, as you can see, the header moves towards to this corner here. At the same time, this menu bar here will be responsive as well. So if you click this icon here, it will display on the side. Okay. Also, for our database, I'll be using MySQL. And this is our MySQL database. So for the database, I'll be using, or the name of our database is my database. Okay. And the table is movies. Okay. So with these movies, with the fields of ID, title, and description. Also, for the application, I'm using XAMPP or XAMPP because this is one of the most common thing that a developer use. So this is one of the most popular application. By the way, you can use any type of database application for MySQL. You can also use WAMP server, LAMP, or the desktop version of MySQL. Any other of those, as long there's a MySQL, then you're okay. Okay, good. So to begin with, going to start by creating a new folder. Okay, and the name of the folder is root. Please take note, for this demo, I'll be using VS Code. So if you have other IDE, it doesn't matter. As long you have Node.js installed on your system, that should work. Okay, so from this point here, we're going to initialize our npm init. So to do that, just head to the terminal. Okay. Okay, so from our terminal, you need to type npm init and hit enter. Okay, for our package name, I'll be retaining the Crud. So Crud is good. For version, we leave as this. Description, this is an MVC with Materialize and Handlebars and MySQL. For the entry point, I'll be using app.js. Test command, we can leave this as blank. Same goes with Git. And keywords. For the author, yours truly. License, we can skip that. Now, if you're satisfied with this kind of setup, then hit enter. Okay, good. Now, okay. Now that we have our npm package, I mean the package JSON, or should I say, if we are ready, then we can start the installation of our package. To begin with, we need to type npm install I, and then the name of the package, I'll be using Express and Express Handlebars. Also, I'll be using MySQL 2. This is the highest version. And I'm going to save that. So let's check again. Express Handlebars, MySQL 2. And then hit enter. Okay, while waiting for this one, please take note, we won't be using Sequelize for this demo, but don't you guys worry. I'm going to create a separate video on that. But for here, we're going to only demonstrate on how to use MVC, and with the of course, and with the connection on how to call MySQL and load that to our system. Okay, while waiting for this one, I mentioned a while ago about MVC. So what is MVC? MVC stands for Model, View, and Controller. So in the world of web development, web programming, MVC is the standard structure in setting up your codes. So the reason that we will be having, or to structure our MVC code, is simply because so that it will be manageable and reusable. Also, every developers are making sure that their codes are well established, so that if, let's say, if you're looking for a connection, so there's a section on your code where you store that. Okay, so that's the purpose of MVC. Okay, cool. So we're finished. We're going to clear this one here. So let's examine. Okay, as of the time of this recording, our version of Express is 4.17, and Express Handlebars is version 5.3.2, and our MySQL version 2 is 2.2.5. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to create our entry point. So our entry point here is the app.js. So as our per setup, we need to create our basic code for this one, or the basic setup. So from here, I'm going to call first the Express package. Then from here, I'm going to assign that in a variable named app. Okay, from this point here, we're going to assign the port. So we need to apply the process .env .port. If there are available, we'll be using, or this process env port will be assigned the port for you. So if not, you're going to assign the default port. This one I'll be using 5000. The purpose of this line here, this will look for any available port if 5000 was already were already used. So that's the purpose of that. Next, we're going to apply a app listen. So this will initialize our server. So I'm going to call the port from here. Launch a console.log, and say server is running at port and your port. Cool. So now let's do a test run. So to do that, you need to type node app. Okay, so we have an error. So let's check. This is error on line 7. So we said oh yeah, I forget this one. Okay, so let's try again. Oh, yeah, so I hit another, there's another end console code here. So hopefully it should work. Final check. Okay, so I guess that's good. So hit enter. And there you go. So at this point here, our initial setup is working. Now let's cancel this first. Okay. Now from this point here, I'll be using Nodemon. So to do that, you can install Nodemon globally or locally. But on my case, I won't be using or install Nodemon. I'll be using npx. So this is the standard package for executed. And I'm going to call Nodemon. And then call the app. Okay, what it does is instead of using the local Nodemon, I'll be using the one that available from npx. So npx is the counterpart of npm. So if you hit enter, there you go. Now, for those who are first time of using Nodemon, so Nodemon basically is a package that instead of doing manually like the Node app like a while ago, Nodemon will auto refresh. So whenever you do some coding, so Nodemon will auto refresh for any changes that you made on your system. That's the purpose of your Nodemon. Okay, so let's continue. Now, okay. Now, from this point here, we're going to assign first our handlebars. So, to do that, I'll be calling cons, exp, and hbs, also known as express handlebars. To do that, we need to require and then load the package. Okay, that should be it. Okay, and then from this point here, we'll be going to, of course, set up our engine. So to do that, you need to type app.engine, and then the extension, which is HBS for handlebars, and going to call that variables. Okay, and we need to assign the extension name, so that when we assign that in our page, it will look for this extension, this.hbs. Okay, cool. Now next, after setting up our engine, the next thing we need to do is to set up our view engine. and the extension of HBS. Okay, good. So once okay, if this is okay, the next thing we need to do now is, since we already set up our handlebars, we need to assign that or call that in our views folder. Okay. Now, by default, Express handlebars are using a default folder, and that folder is what you call layouts. Also, by default, the default layouts file is the main.hbs, which means this is the main layout by default. Okay, so let's apply here our basic HTML. So from our main.hbs, let's say going to apply a basic HTML code here. For those who are not familiar with HTML5 syntax, I want you to please check on my video on HTML5. So from there, you can review how to create or set up your HTML5 structure. So from here, going to say group. Okay, so here going to set up our body. And our body. Okay. Now that we have set up our main layout, so I'm going to put a sample paragraph. This is layout. Okay, so now that we have our layout, the next thing we need to do is we need to assign a, you can say the index or the body tag for this one. Or should I say, let's say a content file that handles within the layout. So what we're creating here is the relationship between the layout and the file that will load from here. So, but first, we need to set up first our layout. For this one to work, we need to assign that in a container. So, these tags of container will hold the value from your external page. So to do that, let's say you can apply in this manner. So, okay. In handlebars, this is the way, this is the proper way of calling those external pages. So let's say going to complete this one. I'm going to assign that in a deep folder. Deep class, let's say container. Okay, so now that we have prepared our layout, the next thing we need to create now is an external pages to load from this section here. Now to do that, we need to select this views, which is the topmost, and I'm going to create a new file. Let's say going to name that as index.hbs. Okay. from here, let's say going to call a paragraph, then I'm going to call this as main. Okay, so what it does is this main or the index.hps will be loaded inside in this section here. So it will call here since this is our default layout. Okay, so that's the next part. Now the next part is for this to work, we need to set up a routes. So to do that, we need to set up that in our app.js. Then from this point here, I'm going to call the routes. Let's say, okay, better going to create a folder here and going to name that as routes. Okay, so now that we have our folder routes, we need to call that within our app. So to call a routes, you need to call bar routes. Then going to assign require, then the path. So this is routes. And from routes, I'm going to initialize a route location. So I'm going to assign that in an index. Then from here, I'm going to call my routes and pass the value of app. Okay. App is our standard or the main variable here. So this is the entire setup from our app.js. Okay, cool. Okay, notice that we will be having an error because right now we don't have this index. So let's create that. So inside our routes, we're going to create that file. So index.js. Okay, so from this point here, we're going to assign a module that exports. Let's say going to assign that function. Okay. So from our params here, remember I assigned that app, so it should be passed on to this section here. And from this here, we're going to apply this app.get, and we're going to load our first page. So to do that, by default, this is the default URL. And then okay. And then from this point here, we're going to assign a, should I say, okay, let's say going to assign here the set up the rec and res. Then from this point here, let's say going to close that. Okay. And then we're going to assign a return statement here. Then we're going to call the res. Then from the res, we're going to apply the render. So this will render our page. And the page that we're going to render is this one, this index.hbs. So instead of typing the whole word, so we need to only capture index. Okay, so by default, okay, so I think we have an error in this section. It says not found. So let's check. So cannot find module.route/index. Oh yeah, because we assign routes, so we should replace that name here. So it should be routes. Okay, so then we check. Okay, cool. So that's it. So as you can see, we don't have errors anymore. So let's test this from our page. Let's say I'm going to close this one. I want to go localhost 5000. And there you go. Okay, let me explain. I'm going to move that from here. Okay. Now, as you can see, both applications were displayed. I mean, both output. So by default, okay. By default, Handlebars handles or has a default layout, which is the default layout for Handlebars is this layouts folder and the main.hps. So if you scan our main.hps, I set up this as to layout. But since we already set up our index.hps, that's the code we applied in our routes. For those who are beginners, this indicates as the default URL. So in here, we render the index, so which is this one. So if you scan here, I call up or set up this main paragraph. So that's why we have a dual structure, which is the top, which is the layout, and the main is the child. Okay, you can consider this the parent and this is the child. Okay, understand? Okay, let's continue. Now let's complete our statement. From this point here, we'll be using the Materialize. So to do that, we need to get our Materialize from this website. Okay, so as of the time of this recording, this is the current update of that version. So just go to this site here. Then from that site, then click Get Started. And then go to this lower section here and hit or click this Materialize link. Okay, so this is the package for that. But I already have download this package a while ago, so I won't be needing anymore. And once saved, we need to place that in this manner. Okay. So to do that, we need to make sure that we arrange within the folder. So this is the CSS, this is the fonts, and this is the Materialize JavaScript. So this was broken out or categorized in this manner. Okay, so let's examine our downloads first. Okay, so this is the download of that from Materialize. So we extract this one. Okay. So from this section here, we only have the JavaScript and the CSS. So to work in our system, we need to apply that in what you call static folder, or in your case, static location. By default, actually there's no default. We can create a one that will handle this JavaScript and cascading. So to do that, in this example, I'll be store those information in a folder called public. Okay, so this is our default folder. So what it does is all the CSS or JavaScript will be called to this folder here. So let's copy that first. So from Materialize, going to copy this one and store that in our root folder under public. Just paste. Okay, good. So let's close this one. Let's examine. There you go. So as you can see, we already placed our CSS and JavaScript. Next, so the next thing we need to do now is to apply this setup like this one. So to do that, there's a section here or an example of that format. So for us not to worry anymore, just copy what's within the within this here. So let's say going to copy from this point here to here. Okay, I'll copy that one and place that in our layout. Paste it here. Okay, let's rearrange this one. And going to paste that. Okay. Because by default, guys, as you can see, this one doesn't matter. But this one here, the Materialize, was already arranged in this folder section and with the file name. So in here, we already have our folder. Now let's go back. Going to copy also this JavaScript. Going to place that in our body. But please take note, I'm modifying our layout because since this will be the primary or the parent of the entire process, so this should be the proper setup of these settings. Okay, so good. Now that we already placed our CSS and JavaScript, so for now, this will not work yet. So what we need to do first, we need to assign a command or a code that will call this folder here. By default, Node.js won't allow any external files to access within the code. So we need to do a hard code for that. To do that, we need to go back to our app.js. Okay. So the requirements for that, first, we need to assign a path. So that path will recognize or assign a path that will locate those files. Okay. So whatever will be the changes on the front end, the path will see to it that it will run on the default path that you're going to assign. So from here, let's say here, I'll be using that path by using app.use. Then we'll be using the express package, then call the static. Then load our path.join. Okay, so what are the elements for this one? So for this one, first is you need to know or get the directory names. To call that, you need to apply underscore to underscore and dir name. Okay, and then assign the folder. So our default, we assign that to public folder. Okay, cool. So let's check if this is work. Okay, so before we load to our system, we need to examine first our setup. Okay. So since we already assigned that in a public folder, we would think that this will be called directly. So let's check first if that works. So from here, Want to refresh this one. Okay. We see that this one is working. Now, just to make sure that this is really works, we need to examine on the other side. So let's say from this point here, you need to go to the console section. Better here. So click inspect queue. Okay. I would suggest to scan on the console. So as a developer, you guys must know how to use this one. Okay, then to know if the links are working, we need to reload this page. Okay, good. So as you can see, these things are working. So the layout and the main are, yeah, this is all working. Now there's one thing I want to emphasize on this one. Okay, going back to our layout, the proper setup for this one, as you can see, our code already works on the front end part. It's already called the default location. Same goes with the JavaScript. But this will only work if the setup or load on the first page. But if you switch to different pages, this will be having an issues. So to fix that, we need to assign in this manner. So instead of this one, you need to assign like this. Put a slash on the first part. Same goes with this one. Okay. So this will avoid those issues when you add more pages later on. So let's save this one. Now, if we reload our page, still working. Okay, if you have any problem, let's say this will change to different, let's say a red color, that means that, or you can see it from this section here. If this won't appear as let's say not found, which means this location is not working or undetectable. So that's how we work. If you are a web developer, always use this web developer tool here. This will really help you on your development. Okay, let's minimize this. Okay, now that we have set up this, let's continue with our setup here. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's examine again. So this is the layout. So this is the main body or the main layout of the entire application. Going to remove this now, since this is working. Then on the index section, we're going to split the content that we need. So first, the first thing I need to do is going to load a navigation bar. Now in Handlebars, there's also what you call partials. For the partials to work, you need to split that and call that within the page. Okay, let's explain this by creating one from here. So let's say from views, you need to create a folder called partials. Okay, so for this section here, I'm going to initialize a menu. So for that menu, I'll be calling that as navbar. Navbar dot HBS. Okay. Now, for us to have our nice navbar, we'll be using the Materialize. So let's say from here, I'm going to search for component, then navbar. Okay, so this will, okay, good. Okay, we're going to pick one of the links from here. So let's say this one. Button, title, search bar, menu collapse. Okay, so this one. So we'll be using that one. So to do that, we need to call that from here. Then paste that in here. Okay. Now next, from this section here, it also requires this JavaScript. So to do that, okay, we'll be copying this section here. Now, from this section below, if you're using a jQuery from this Materialize, you will be using this one. But since I'm not using jQuery, I'll be using the standard JavaScript. So I'm going to copy this one. Okay, going to paste that in our layouts. Okay, from section here, I'm thinking maybe here or somewhere here. Okay, I'm going to apply that script. So I need to type script. Going to launch that JavaScript statement. Okay, this should be script. Okay, that's it. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, I won't be cleaning that yet. So let's go back to our index. Now, to load that from our main, to load our partials, this is how you call our navbar. You need to start with this one. Then, you need to assign a greater symbol here, and then the name of the partials. So here, this is navbar. So this one, this indicates that this is looking at for that partials in the partials folder, and with this navbar. Okay, let's check our site. Need to refresh. There you go. So okay, let's check this. Okay, cool. So as you can see, it's working now. If I minimize to this section here. Okay, so we have an error. So let's examine first why this one did not work. Okay. Now these guys, if you found these errors, this is an option error not defined. So this is located in our main or the layout. Remember where I paste the layouts? Okay, that error falls under here. Okay. If you don't have any setup for the options, we can simply change that into like this. Okay, so what it does is this will load the default option. Okay, so if that's okay, so let's try. That's why it's very good thing we need to use these sections. So you must know how to use this one. Okay, let's reload. Okay, cool. So no more errors. So if we minimize this one, then click this button here. There you go. So this indicates that our navbar is working. Cool. Okay, so that one is okay. Now the next thing we need to do is to clean up this content. Of course, we don't need this content. We only need the basic stuff. So let's go back to our navigation bar. Okay, so from our example, I'll be using only the add new. I'm going to clean up from this section here. So going to place this as add new. Okay, since we don't have that pages, we need to assign this by this sharp symbol. Same goes, you need to modify in this lower section here. So it should be the same. This one, going to replace this one as symbol. Then this should be add new. Refresh. There you go. So okay, so the first part is okay. Now I'm going to change this one. I don't want to use the logo brand. So I'm going to replace that as Crud. Cool. So if I minimize this one, there you go. Okay. Okay, good. Now that the first part is working, so the next part is we're going to launch our table in this section here. So to do that, we're going to name that as content. So let's say from our layouts or partial, sorry. So from the partials, we're going to call that as content. .hps. Okay. Now let's find a good example for this one. So from our materials, we're going to search for tables. So let's say collection. Let's try to search from here. Okay, we're going to look for that responsive table. So let's say not this one. Highlight table, okay, center table, this one. Okay, we'll be using this one, this responsive table. This is a good one, a nice example. If I minimize like that. Okay, if this is a full view, you can see the headers are displayed in this manner. And if I'm going to lower that one, all headers are pulled from this section here. So yeah, so we'll be using that code. So let's copy first. So there's no example here. Better need to copy this one. Okay, this is a standard HTML table, so don't you worry. Okay, from here, going to assign this on a div class. Div class container. Whenever you create an HTML page, make sure you use or encapsulate that in a div container. Div class container, so that's work. And going to close that in here. Okay, for our table, I won't be needing that one. I'll be replace that as movie. And this one should be description. Good. So from this section here, going to remove all of this here. make sure you only retain the TR and the TD. So I'm going to remove this one as well. Just blank. Okay, so this is the concept of a table. So this is the header, and this is the body, and this is the table. Okay. So if you check that on our, oh yeah, we did not call this one first. So we need to load this one. So from our index, we need to load that table. To do that, the name of the partial is content. Save. Then check our browser first, just to make sure that we have the table. Okay. Yeah, I think there's no error. Okay, so simply because that table has no values yet, we need to assign anything from here. So I suppose this one is not yet working. Content. Okay, let's examine. Spec Q. Seems it's not showing from here. Anyway, we'll just continue. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Okay, we'll just continue this one. So partials content T plus container table. Okay. So we need to examine first why this table is not showing in there. Let's say I'm going to type here S. Going to name this here as table. Just to make sure that this one is working, we need to refresh. Oh yeah, so it's really not calling or loading in our index. Why? Content HPS. It's content. So index content. Yeah, it's still in there. So con.hps. Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, always don't forget this one, because a while ago I keep checking why is it's not loading, because I forget to type or to include this greater symbol. Okay, so that should work. Let's see. Let's refresh this one here. There you go. Okay, so now that our table is ready, but still we didn't get yet that setup, so we need to apply the responsive table. This is the one. So you need to copy that class responsive table. Then from our partials content, we need to apply that in here on the table. Then paste. Okay, so let's clear this one here. Cool. So as you can see, it's already moving to this section here. So let's, okay. Yeah, so this one is working. If I move to this one, so everything moves from this section here. Okay, cool. So as you can see, this is good. So this our design is, our setup is workable. But there's one thing I want to change also. I want to apply another setup. Let's say Oh, this one. Okay. This is the highlight. So because there's no other setup like this. Oh, there's a stripe. Okay. So maybe the highlight. Okay. We can copy also this class highlight. So to do that, you need to copy the class highlight. And you can mix that with the class on the table. So the first one is responsive table. You need to paste that, then paste highlight. So if we go back here, then reload. Okay, so I think it's working now. Okay, cool. So that's the first part. So design is really the hardest part next to coding. Okay, so I think we're ready now to start with our first code for this one. Okay, good. Let's close everything here. Okay. Okay, let's review again. From this section here, we assign the last part is the assigning the public path. And from that, we also assign our routes. So now that we have our routes, the views, the public, the next thing is we're working now on the database. So to begin with, we'll be using the MVC, so the model view controller. So to understand clearly, okay, so let's say this one here, instead of assigning in this manner, we assign that in our routes. We'll be assigning that in a controller folder. So to do that, I'm going to create a folder named controller. And I'm going to assign a controller file. So let's say this is movie controller .js. Okay. Now we're going to copy this section here and apply in our controller. Now, so what is a controller? You can say that controller is the one that assigns the operation. So that's the works of the controller. So to make it work, we need to apply an export. Let's say I'm going to call this as main, and then going to assign an asynchronous function, rec and res. Then from that, going to return, instead of applying that manner, I'm going to call it in this manner. Okay, so that's how we assign our controller. Now to call that, we're going to apply that in our routes. Then from here, the first thing we need to do is we need to call our controller. So I'm going to call that from here. Let's say movie controller, and we call that file. So by typing require, then the location. So that's in that slash controller slash movie controller. Okay, good. So from that, we're going to call that and assign in this section. So instead of typing like this, we can call that as movie controller that main. Let's say like this. Okay. So which means we're now calling that to movie controller. Okay. So let's test that. Oh, there's an error. So cons. Okay. So the error is cons movie controller. So it should be cons. Okay. So there's an error again. Module not found. Next. Let's go back. This should be that controller. Okay, so no more errors. So it should be double dot because this one is within the routes folder and that one is on the other side. So it should be 2 lapses above. So let's try that one. Let's see, refresh. Okay, so since this is working, so no errors. So I guess our controllers is working. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's the next part for this one. Now the next part that we're going to do is we need to assign now our database. So to do that, I'm going to assign a new file. I'm going to name that as db.js. Okay, so since we're not using SQLize, we're going to recreate our very own SQLize type or example. Or you can say that as similar to SQLize. Okay, so to begin with, make sure it's outside with our folders. That's db.js. And from here, we need to load our package. That package is MySQL. And we need to call our package name, which is the MySQL2. From here, you need to load your connection. Okay, connection. So for the connection, you need to type MySQL dot create connection. Okay, so what are the elements involved? Inside this create connection, you need to call the host, which is localhost, and our user, it's root, and my password. Okay. If you have your built-in MySQL, make sure you know if there's a password or you have set up your password. So in my example, this is my password. And for the database, the name of my database is my database. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, next one, I'm going to call that connection and check or applies the connect. So that's a function here. Going to call the error function. If there's an error, then it will throw the error. Okay, so also we need to export this module. To do that, you need to type module.exports equals to connection. Okay, so that's how you set up your database connection. Now to load that, okay, now here's the next part. The next thing we need to do now is we need to assign a model for the model section. This model will serve as the brain of your entire system. So this one where you called our database. So to do that, we need to create a folder name model. Now for this demo, I'll be calling that as movie.js. Okay, so from here, I'm going to load that database. So going to assign that as SQL. Then going to apply require and the location of the database connection. So that's db.js or db. Okay. Now from this point here, I'm going to assign a variable to load our fields. So to do that, I'm going to type movie. Then to assign a function. Okay, from this point here, I'm going to assign a variable which is called movie. Then I'm going to assign the fields. Now, fields should be the one you assign on your movie on your table. So in my table, the fields are, let's say, okay, this is my fields. This is the title, and this one is description. You want to copy that? So this title. And the other one is this, that, description. Okay. Now this will serve as a reference. So for whatever operations that we're going to use, we'll be using these assigned variables as our reference. So from here, I'm going to type movie dot title. The same goes movie dot description. Okay, cool. So that's the first part. Now that we have assigned our variable, so the next thing we need to do is we need to assign a load structure for this one. Our first command or code for this one is I want to display all the values from that table for that movie. So to do that, I'll be calling movie. Then I'm going to assign that as get all. Going to apply a function, and from that function, I'll be return a result. Okay, that's the first part. Now from this point here, I'm going to apply a SQL code, which is the one that I assign here. So SQL, then going to apply the query. For the query, so I'm going to apply select all from movies. Yeah, function. Function should be and res. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, let me check first. Okay, so from this section here, I'm going to check a condition. If error or error, then I'm going to return a console log. going to display an error. Then going to display the error here. Okay, that's the first part. Now next, going to apply a result statement. So since this is an error, going to return a null data and pass on the error. That's the first part. So since this is an if then else condition, going to apply in this manner. Okay, to be followed by an else statement. Now, if there's no errors, I'm going to print a console log here. Then going to call movies and the data. And going to return a result. Now, then rest. Okay, so that's it. So so what it does is it will return an old value because I perform a select all statement. So should be movies. That's the name of our table. So after setting up our query, next thing we need to do is to export this module. Let's do movie. Okay, good. Okay, now that we set up our model, the next thing we need to do is we need to patch that through our controllers. So to do that, we need to select our controllers. Okay. So from here, I'm going to launch that models. So to do that, I need to assign here cons. And the name of the model is movie. And going to apply the required to patch the model. So to do that, need to type dot slash. Okay, so dot slash, then the name of the folder, that is model slash movie. Save. Okay. Oops, this should be equals. Okay, no more error. Okay. Now that we already assigned or called our movie, the next thing we need to do is I need to export this one. So to do that, I'm going to apply exports dot get movies. That's the name of my export. Then I'm going to apply a async reg and rest. Okay, since we're using this asynchronous and await, we're going to apply here the await movie dot get all. So the question is, why get all? Get all, that's my model. Get all. Okay, so going to apply the get all. And from here, I'm going to assign the functions. Then to apply the error and the data. Cool. So from here, I'm going to check if there's an error. Going to return a rest status. Okay. let's say the port is 500. So, port 500 or the test status 500 indicates that there's a problem. So send. From here, I'm going to apply that in a message. Say dot message. Some error. Some error occurred while retrieving B. Okay, if this is the sections for the error. Now, if there's no errors, we can apply the else statement. Then I'm going to render of course, the index. So I'm going to render here. And from here, I'm going to pass a value. So I'm going to assign or pass the parameters from here. We're going to call movies and the data. Okay, cool. Okay, so now that we set up in this manner, so take note, I apply that to the index. So since this is a conflict with this one, we can remove this one. We won't be needing that one anymore. So from this section here, we're going to replace our routes. Okay, instead of, because we assign these for the index, so instead of using the main, since we don't have the main anymore, I'm going to call the movies. Just to make sure. Let's say go to make this plural, movies. So from here, I'm going to change this as movies. Okay, cool. So if you run this one, go back here. Of course, this won't work because we didn't load that from our pages. But if we check here, let's say reload. Okay, so I think it will not load here as well. But anyway, okay, so from this section here, we're going to apply those fields from these fields in here. So to do that, from our grid, or which is the content, as you recall, this was stored in views and content. Okay. Okay, it should load in this section, the body. So since this is the header, we're going to apply that value in here. So to do that, we need to apply or call each method. That's the loop method for handlebars. So from here, need to call us this hashtag here, then name that as each, and the variables I assign, that is movies. Okay, and then from here, going to call that value. So to do that, need to type like this, and need to type this dot title. Same goes here. This dot description. Small letter. Okay, so Of course, for every each, you need to close the tag. So to do that, you need to type like this. Okay, so so this will loop all the values to display in this section. So let's check again. Take note, we assign this as movies because if you check our controller, this was passed by here. Oh, okay, this is movie. So this should be movies. Okay. So this is the data that we're going to pass by or pass on to the index. So from here, okay, that's movies. All right, let's check. Reload. Okay, so seems there's something working here. So let's check our, or let's inspect. Then go to the console. To do that, we need to reload this page. Okay, so I guess it won't show in here. But, okay, so, okay, I guess we can use this one. So we already passed that from here. So this is the output for that. Take note, I apply this code in this section here. From our models. Okay, here. So this is the section for that. So as you can see, this display this one. So but for now, we don't have the values yet because we have an empty fields. Okay, let's try insert sample value from this table. To do that, so from here, let's say I'm going to put this as Mortal Kombat. Let's say this is an action movie. Just an example. Then going to save that. So let's check our movies. Okay, so as you can see, we have the sample data here. So from our table, need to reload this page. There you go. Okay, good. So now that that works, so okay, so the first part is working. So let's review. Okay, so what we does is we apply now the MVC, so the model view. The model represents us this section here, which serves as the function that loads the, or the, you can say the brain of the system. So from this section here, I apply the queries, and then this will be loaded up to our controller. So this is the controller part. Then from our controller, we load that in our views. So this represents as our views. So that's okay. So that's how you represent the MVC format. Okay. So let's continue. Okay. Now that this section is working, the next thing we need to do now is we need to apply a new modules, and that one is the add section. Okay, we're going to work now on the add button here, so that this will serve as our entry. So to do that, let's say going to apply that in the outside, somewhere next to this one. So from here, going to add a new file, going to close that as add.hbs. So this is a form, so we need to create a form. So I'm going to check that from our Materialize. Let's say from here, I'm going to pick this form. Let's pick one. Okay, so this is autocomplete. Option, method. We're going to pick, let's say, these inputs. Okay, good. So I think this is the best example. Okay, so I'll be copy this section. Let's check all. Okay. Okay, I'll be copying this section here, this input fields. Then we're going, from here, going to replace all this content. So let's copy this one to here. Okay, so what are the elements that we need to remove? So I don't need this one. Repro. Okay, so this one. This one. Okay, next. Okay, so let's check this one by one. Input last name called 12. Okay, I'll prepare this one. So let's say, just to make sure, clear to everyone, instead of small 6, going to change this to 12. Okay, so also going to replace this one. So this should be title. Title. This one should be description. Description. Okay, so that should work. So next, I'll be applying that in a container. Okay, make sure you insert that in a container. That's the proper way to set up your component. Okay, good. Okay, now that we apply this already set up for our add.hps, now the next thing we need to do now is to call this form. So to do that, we need to start from our routes. Routes here. Okay, so from here, I'm going to apply app dot get. Then going to apply the add. So from here, I'm going to call our controller. Since we don't have this module yet, I will assume or make this one movie, add movie. Okay, so from here, from our routes, I'm going to copy this one and save the set up that in here. So I'll be copy this one here. Okay, since this is a add component, so I'm going to apply render dot and render our add.hps. So from here, I'm going to type add. Okay. Let's go back here. So this is our routes / add. So from our menu, so from here, I'm going to apply that in here. So take note, the links here is, okay, let's go to our navigation. Okay, here. So from our navigation, we're going to call that /add. Okay, this will load our form. So let's try. So let's reload this one. If I click add new, oh, I think need to refresh this one. Okay, so just to make sure. Oh, I think it's not saving. Why? Okay, there's an error. Outs to splash column but get undefined requires. Okay, let's check our routes. Get, so this is / movie controller add movie. So this one is okay. Exports add movie async. Oh, that's weird. Says this one's working here. Module 17. Okay, seems our code is working. I think there's no issues in here. So we need to scan our navigation bar. Okay, this is one thing I noticed. When I point it here, look at the lower part, it forwards to this hashtag. This localhost 5000 hashtag. So from this section here, we only replaced this one, but didn't know that there's another here. So we need to apply that one and paste it here. Okay, so that should work. Yeah, so I suppose this is working. So let's reload our page. Say this one. Okay, so I think this is okay now. If I click add new, there you go. So notice we already okay, so I guess this one is working. So the only thing we need to do is to fix this display, title, description. So yeah, I think that's good. So let's go back here. There's one thing also I noticed. Okay, I notice our navigation bar exceeds within this table. So I want to align with this one. So to do that, I'm going to assign a div class container in our nav bar so that we have a clean view. then you need to close that. Okay, good. So if we refresh this one, there you go. So this is what I mean. We need to clean up our table, our component. Okay, so I guess this one is okay. Now let's go back to our add new. So from here, going to fix this one. Notice we only put the placeholder, but this one has this one none. So I'm going to fix that. From our add.hvs, so we need to place the placeholder. So title, okay, so that's the placeholder for title. And for the description, oh, this one don't have. So you can put that as well. Placeholder. There you go. But there's one thing I notice here, because since description represents of a multiple line, so we need to replace this one. There's a component available, or of course, everyone knows this. We'll be using, should I say, the text area. So instead of text input or the input component, we'll be using text area for this section. So to do that, I'm going to remove this section here. Okay. From here, going to apply the text area. So text area. So whenever you apply a multiple line, so text area should be the perfect or the best component for that. Okay, so from here, I'm going to apply the name. Let's say this one is description. So same goes. I guess our title here don't have a name, so I'll be put a name here. Names equals to title. Okay, so that should be okay. So from our description, going to apply an ID. Okay, so that's one. Next. Okay, from this point here, I'm going to apply a class that's for that's the dedicated for Materialize, and that class is, maybe need to break down in this manner. Okay, so we have here the name, ID, and then going to apply a class. For the class, this is the built-in Materialize. So I'm going to call load the Materialize text area. Okay, and then we need to include validate. So this will validate our entry. The same goes here. Going to rearrange that one. ID, type, and class. Okay, so same goes here. Now We need also to apply the placeholder. Placeholder equals to description. For the name, should be small letter description, because this will be served as our ID. The same goes with the ID here, should be a small letter. Same with the title, so that should be also the same with the description. Okay, cool. So let's check. Need to go back in there. Reload. Okay, so okay, so seems this one's not showing here. Let's check our setup. Text area is correct. Seems they're correct. Okay, so text area here, this is text area, this is text area. Materialize. I'm wondering why that one did not show. So materialize dash text area validate. Okay, so that seems to be okay. Placeholder description. Okay. Okay, so we need to add some additional properties from here. From this one, I'm going to apply the height or the style, sorry. So from here, since there's no default for this one, for the height, I'm going to apply the height. Let's say the height for this one is 100 pixel. Okay. And for the validations to work, we need to apply the required. Okay. Because if you apply only validate, this won't work. So to make it work, we need to apply this one. We need to apply require. Then we need to assign this font area required. Required. We need to set up these to true. So same goes to here. We can just copy this one. Then place that in here. Okay, that's the input. This is the text area. I'll make sure that everything is on place. So let's check. Refresh. There you go. So I'm just curious, why is it this one not showing? Okay, so maybe there's something in here. There. Okay, so there's something in between. So let's go back here. Okay, so maybe we should compress this one. Okay, so that should hold an empty space. So if we reload this one, there you go. Okay, so that's it. We already managed or work with our add table here. There's a title about. Okay, let's check why is it there's a title here. Name, title, ID, text, placeholder title for this title. Okay, that's for this one. So for the we apply that for here, so we should also apply for the text area. So from here, I want to apply this as description. Should be copied this one to here. Okay, so let's reload. Okay, there you go. Now, okay, so the validation also works. As you can see, if this is empty, this will there. So this will pop up this one. Please fill out this field. Same goes here. Okay, so this one should be big letter. Okay, so that's okay, cool. So now it's okay. Now from here, going to add, of course, label. So for this form, so to do that, let's say I'm going to place that in here. To apply that, I need to type h1. This is add new. Let's check. Okay, but this one's so big, so we need to set up that to small. So I'll be using h3. h3. So let's try. Okay, good. That should work. Nice. Okay, now next to that, I'll be assigned a button submit. So since we already have this entry section, the next thing we need to do is we need to assign a button for the submit. So to do that, we need to add another field. So here, this is another. Okay, I need to assign another div class row. Next from here, make sure you're inside within the form. Okay, so then need to apply a div close tag here. Okay, so that should work. Okay, from this section here, we need to apply the button component. So let's say button. Then for that one, for the type, this is a submit type. Okay. Then going to name this one as name action. Cool. And the name of our button, going to name this one as submit. Okay, so that let's check our page. We hit reload. There you go. But this one, this is a standard submit. I want to apply a class for this one. So for this one, I'm going to apply a class built in from Materialize. Let's say that class is button or btn waves effect and waves light. Okay, let's try this one. There you go. Okay, so this looks nice. Cool. Now, aside from this one, I'm going to apply also a return button. So for the return button, maybe going to apply that in here. Okay. So that return button, that the purpose of that return button, let's say if we want to cancel that one, we need to click that one and it will return to the main page. So to do that, I'll be copying this one. Okay. I'll be copying this section here and apply here and paste that in here. Okay. So for the rows, okay. Or better, I'll be using, instead of button, I'll be using a link. Okay, that should do. Okay, I won't be using a button, but instead I'll be using a link. So to do that, I'm going to assign that in a div class. Then assign the call, the small s12. Then from here, going to close this one first. Make sure you always close your tag. Then from here, going to apply the anchor tag. So a class. Same, going to apply that class in our submit. So waves effect, waves light, and this should be a button small. Okay, cool. That's the first part. Enter. Okay, so next I'm going to apply the hyperlink or the href. And for that link, I'm going to apply this one. So this is the default. Then I'm going to close this tag here. Then from here, I'm going to apply or type the keyword or the text for that is go back. Then I'm going to close this anchor tag. Cool. So let's try that one. Let's refresh. There you go. Okay, so if I click go back, oh, it's not working. Why? Okay, so let's check our hyperlink again. What did we miss? Discuss row a tag class waves. Okay, hyperlink go back. Okay, maybe we need to put that in one row. Okay, I see the problem. Let's go back there. Okay, instead of href, I put it in here. This was misspelled, so this should be href. Okay, so this should work. Make sure you have a good eyesight for this one. So here I found out that this one is in a wrong typing error. So let's check. Reload this page. Then click this one, go back. There you go. So that one is working. So let's go back here again. Okay, cool. Okay, so now that our add form is complete, the next thing we need to do is we need to apply a submit action. so that once submit, this will save the value to our database. So let's begin. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to first set up our model. From our model, I'm going to apply a create function. So from here, I'm going to call movie that create equals function. Okay. Okay. From the function, I'm going to assign a value, that's new movie, and the result. So this will be our parameters. From this point here, going to apply the SQL that query. So from here, going to apply the insert command. So insert into movies, set this value. Okay, so okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to apply this parameter, the new movie, and then comma, we need to apply the function and /res. Okay, so function rs, then need to apply this one. Okay, so since this is an insert method, so the first thing we need to check is if there's an error. Okay, from the error, you need to type console.log. We can copy this one and paste here. Okay, so this is for the error condition. If there's no error, we need to create, or first, I need to display the console log. You know, to display create movie. Okay, so from here, first thing is I'm going to assign the ID. That's res dot insert ID, or should I say ID? Okay, please take note this one, comma, and 3 dot 1 2 3, and the value. So this should be the new movie. Paste here. Okay, so this is the idea on how to insert this value. So from here, I'm going to apply the result null. So same goes. I'll be copying this section here, this one, then apply here. Okay, this is a little bit complicated, but just follow along. This is how we're going to apply this one to perform the insert method. Okay, so this is okay. Now the next thing we need to do now is apply that in our controller. We need to call this in our controller. Okay, somewhere here. Okay, from here, I'll be calling the exports that create movie. function okay, so rec and rest. So this is the request and response. From here, I'm going to assign a variable new movie. Then here, going to assign a new value from our movie, which is from the request.body. Okay. Now, we need to check our body first. So in here, you need to apply if body is not empty. So to check that, then we need to return a response status. Let's say 400. Need to send this value, return this value with a message content. Let's say content cannot be empty. Okay. Now, on the first part, what we do is we need to ensure that the content or the receiving value is not empty. Okay, so that's the first error checking. Now, next one, if the value is okay, so we will apply our saving. We're going to call it movie.date. So take note, this create was from our model. So the model, we call this one. Okay, so we call this here. So here, going to call the value, which is the new movie, and then going to apply a function and data. So we need to check if there's an error, we need to apply the response status. It's 500 and send. Here, going to type message and the message of the error. So let's say that message. Or if there's are other types of errors which is not detectable, so we can apply, say, some error occurred while creating the movie. Okay. So that's the sections if there's an error. Now, if there's no error in saving, so what we need to do is, okay, make sure we need to put this inside the if condition. Okay, if there's no error, we'll redirect this to the main index or that grid. So this is okay. So what it does is, in here, this will inspect the body. So once the value assigned or submit, this new value here will be reassigned. So this will reassign to our value in our model. So once received, this will capture in here or assign here is new variable, a new movie variable. Then it will be forward to our models for saving. So from here, this is where our models execute. So these are models. So this will save here. So from that value, it will install in here to save here. Okay, so that makes sense. So again, so once there's an issue, this will return an error statement. But if not, if there's no issue or problem with the saving, this will forward to the default URL, the grid. So that one. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, there's another thing. Since we already prepared our controller, the next thing we need to do is we need to assign that in our routes. So to do that, add movies. Okay. Oh, I guess this one is okay. Movies controller, add movies. This is okay. So from our routes, let's say routes. Okay, from here we're going to apply a post command. abp.post, and this is the path. Movies, and the name of the controller that create movie. Okay, so just to make sure, yeah, so this is create movie. Okay. So this should be create movie. Okay, cool. So now that we set up this one, the next thing we need to do is we need to set that or apply that in our add form. Okay, so from here we're going to apply that in the form class. Okay, so let's check this very well. Okay, so for avoid confuse, need to break down here. Okay, from this section here, this will be the section for the saving method. So first we need to apply the method. Our method is pause, and the action should be movies. Okay, so just to make sure. Okay, that's it. Okay, so make sure you apply that in the form section. So in here we apply the method pause, and this is the routes for that. So if you check our routes, this is the one. So we apply the pause, and this is the route URL. Okay, let's try. Let's reload this page. Okay, good. So let's say going to type here this one, Guardian of the Galaxy. Okay, this is from Disney movie. Okay, so let's try. Once we submit, it should be saved and direct to our list. So if I click submit, there you go. So in here we have an undefined title, so we need to check this one. Movies 5. Okay. Okay. So let's go back to from the starting point. By the way, you can check that as well here. So from here it says cannot read property title of undefined. So, but first, before we proceed with this one, we need to ensure what are the errors. So this one came from the model. So this is from 525. So if I check our model, here. So which means when this execute, this one did not detect. Okay, so this one did not detect. Controller 21. Okay. So just to make sure, we need to check our form. Okay. So this is an error which is not clear which one. We need to go back here. Okay. Then we need to use our console from Web Developers tool, or simply right click and then inspect. That should work as well. So let's check the errors. So from here, I'm going to submit and make sure you are on the console tab here so that we can see if the value is the correct value. So let's submit. Okay. So notice here, this is the error part. So let's scan. Okay. From the request, the title is correct. The description is correct. But the response is this one. Undefined. So let's check this one. So let's go back. Let's begin with the very first part. Okay. The first one is from the routes. A while ago, we already checked this from the movies, from the model. So if I check our model, that is 525. So this one here, this is the section error. So this one is not properly submit or pass the data. So this happens, we need to backtrack check. So let's say this one, we need to check after movies. We need to inspect the controller. So this is on 2221. So let's go check our 2221 here. Okay, so this is the section where the errors occur. So okay, so let's check this one. To do that, you need to copy this one. Then I'm going to apply a console.log. Okay, so what I do is I'm going to check if this value received in this section here. So let's rerun that. From here, I'm going to reload this page because this is where the submit took place. So I'm going to click resend. Okay, that should work. Now, okay, so from here, it says undefined. So let's scan very well. So from this point here, we know that this one already submit, but it so happened that it's not recognized by our code. So there's missing on our part. So what is that one? So let's, to fix that, we need to go back to our app.js. Okay. If you are submitting a value from a form and that one is undetectable, okay, we need to add this as a security measures for the submission. We need to assign a request. Let's see here. Okay. For the property to accept a value which is in JSON form, we need to apply this one, app.use. Then we need to call express. And then we need to apply the JSON. value. Okay. What it does is it will interpret the value as a JSON. Then also we need to apply another thing. That one is the express that URL encode or encoded. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to assign an extended to true. Okay, so take note this property. So this is one of the requirements in submitting a form, or if you're submitting from a form to our server. So since the last one is, this one is not detectable, so which means it did not interpret the values. So let's try. Let's go back here. Then going to reload this page. Just we have a clear entry. Here, go to type Guardian of the Galaxy. This is a Disney movie. Disney movie. Okay, so let's try. Submit. There you go. Now it's working. Cool. So let's review our code. Okay, so I guess I can remove this one. Okay, that's the next part. Okay, so let's go back here. So a while ago, what I do is, upon creating the add new button here, or the add new form, these are the elements we perform. We create the form using the Materialize concept or the example. Then from here, we apply the title and the description. Also, we create a button, which is submit, and a go back button. And if you scan our add.hps, we assign the submit form, which is a post method with the action of movies. And we assign that in our routes. So make sure this is the post routes. So, and this is the submission value or the submission URL. And from here, we forward this to our controller, which is the movie controller. And that's our controller. Then from here, we forward the value to here, which is, this is the value assigned. Okay, from here. Okay, so from here we assign this one because we call that from our model. So we load this value and pass that to our model here. The first thing it will do, it will forward the value from here, and then it will, of course, it will assign it from here. So going back here, take note the model structure or the model function we apply is movie.create. So if we check our model, this is the code that we're working a while ago. So movie.create. And this is where we perform the insert method. Okay, cool. Let's go back. Okay, on the next section, we're going to create an edit method and a deletion. So let's continue this. Okay, now that we already done with our add new form, the next thing we need to do is we need to create first the edit function. So from this table here, I'm going to insert one column for the edit submission. So let's begin. So let's say that was under content. Then from our header, maybe here. Okay, so I'm going to add additional this one. I'm going to copy this one. and paste it here. Or maybe not here. Going to delete this one. I can continue from here. That should work. Okay, so from here, I'm going to apply the edit method. So let's say reload. There you go. So from this section here, we're going to apply the edit method. Okay. Okay. The best way for this one is we need to apply an anchor tag. So to do that, I'm going to call the anchor tag here, then the href. Okay. For now, we don't have the link for that, so we just keep it like this. Or maybe we can assign this temporarily. So from here, I'm going to apply slash movies slash edit, and then from here I'm going to apply the ID. So I'm going to pass the ID. Okay, so I'm going to close that one. Okay, then I'm going to apply the edit. So that should work. So let's reload this page. Okay, if you point this, if you point your mouse here, you can see on the left corner, this one already captures our ID. This one, this is 2. Okay, so that should work. Okay. Okay, from this section here, after we captured after we set up our edit method or the edit link, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a form that will do that will capture this one. So to do that, I'm going to create a form here. Somewhere here, I'm going to create a new form. Let's say I'm going to call that as edit.hbs. Edit.hbs. Okay. So since the add form and the edit has the same structure, so we can copy from there. So from here, I'm going to copy all this one here and paste that in our edit form. Okay, cool. Then I'm going to replace this, instead of add new, this will be the update form. Update form or update movie. Okay, that's good. Okay, so for now we don't have that method yet, so that since we don't know what we need to put from here, so okay, we can make up. Let's say from our action movies, we can apply, let's say, going to pass down here these movies or this movie, or since there's no this for this one, I'm going to pass this as movie.id. Okay, so whatever the value will submit, this will capture as this one. Okay, And the method for now is post. Okay, so that's the first one. So that's movie.id. So for the title, somewhere here, I'm going to pass the value of movie.title. Okay, that's for the title. And this one, I'm going to pass it in here. So should be movie.description. Make sure you close that. This is movie.description. Okay, so next, let's go back to our content. Okay, cool. So yeah, so I think that should do. Okay, so now that we already created our let's see. Okay, now that we created our form, the next thing we need to do is we need to, of course, perform that or apply that in our model. So let's go back to our model. Okay, the first thing we need to do is we need to perform a search method. So that's the very basic, so that we can perform the next step, which is the update. So to do that, we need to type movie.find by ID. Need to apply the function. So from our function, we're going to pass a parameter, which is movie ID and the result. So from here, I'm going to pass a SQL query. So for our query, I'm going to use this one. And going to select all from movies where ID is equals to this variable here. So that should be $ and movie ID. Oops, ID. Okay, so that should do. So what it does is you perform the submission from this one and submit it or pass it on from here. Okay, that's the first part. Next, need to call the function. So we need to find the res and rec. And from here, okay, from res rec, going to okay, so that should be it. Okay. Now, the first thing we need to check if there's an error. So we need to perform an if condition. So if error. So if there's an error, we need to print the console.log. Or we can copy this one and paste it here. So if there's an error, we submit the error here, and then aside from returning a null, we're going to reverse this one, but instead we're going to submit the error and replace this with a null. Then going to perform a return statement. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, okay, that's the first one. Now the second one, I'm going to apply if res dot length. Okay. If there's a value length. Oops, this should be length. So this will be gth. Okay. If there's a value, that's why we emphasize length. So we can say that this is console.log pound movies. Okay, and then going to return the result. So let's say going to pick the value of the first array. Then going to return the result. Null res. Then going to apply the return statement. Okay, but if the result, let's say not found, or there's either this one has no value, we're going to return a parameter indicating that this was not found. Then going to return a null statement. Okay, so that should work. Okay, so yeah, I guess the first part is okay. Now the next part is we need to pass this on in our controllers. So to do that, controllers. Okay, before we're going to proceed with the first part, the first thing we need to do is to pass on the edit form. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture the edit form. So to do that, go to file exports that edit movie and sync rec address. Okay, from here, going to submit the response vendor. So going to apply the edit. So this is the form that we're going to launch. So this is the first part. Then on our routes, okay, just to make sure. Let's go back to our controller. This is edit movie. Okay, so from this one here, let's go to our routes. Go back to our routes. So from here, going to apply app.get. Then going to apply the URL, that's movies. slash edit, and the variable that going to pass is movie ID. Then from here, going to call this movie controller that where is that? Should be edit movie. Should be edit movie. Okay, let's try this one first. So movies, edit, move ID. Okay, so let's check our content. Yeah, so this should be the one. Okay, let's reload. And if I click here, there you go. Okay, I think that's working. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so the first part is we load the form. So this is how we do the first part. So from here, what we do is we assign that in our routes, this section here. Then from here, we call the forms from our controller. And that is the edit movie. And this is the edit movie. Okay, let's enhance that one. Okay, so instead of edit movie, I'll be changing that. Okay, I'll be replace that. Let's say going to call this as exports pine 1. Okay, so the target is we need to to search the value. So rec and res. From here, going to apply from our models, that is movie that find by ID, and we need to capture the parameters. So rec dot param dot movie ID. Now, if you're asking me where did I get this parameter, param ID, this is the one that we assign here. So this is from this section here, from the routes. So that's why we are assigning or calling that in here. So that's our param ID. Now from here, we want to apply the function error and data. Okay, just to make sure. Okay, so from here, I'm going to check if there's an error. If there's an error, the first thing you need to do is error.kind, which means it not found. Then they're not found, so we need to return a statement status, let's say 4, so which means there's no such value, or there's no return statement. So from here, going to assign the message indicating that this is not found. Okay. Let's say going to change this one. Not found movie with an ID of this parameter. Copy this one and paste it here. Okay, that's the first part. So it not found movie with an ID of this one. Okay, not found. Okay, that's the first one. And the next one, else. So if there's another error, let's say rest status, we can copy this one here, paste here. So this is a error 500. So let's say error retrieving error retrieving movie with an ID of this one. Okay, so that's the first part. Now if there's no error, we need to apply an else statement here, and we need to apply a render. Okay, going to pass the edit. So we need to render that with an edit, and we submit the value of movie with the data. Okay, so we'll be going to replace this one by this. So what it does is, if there's no error, we're going to return the form with the value movie. Okay, let's check this one. There's an error here. Oh yeah. So since this is a return statement, it should always be inside this curly braces. Save. Okay, good. Yeah, so I think that should work. So take note, this is spine 1. So let's go back to our routes. So instead of edit movie, this should now be spine 1. Okay, so let's check our edit form. Let's go back. First, we need to refresh this one. Then we hit, we click this button here. Let's say this one. Okay. So there's an error. So let's check. Here, error is not defined. So that is in model. So let's go back to our model. Line 37. Oh yeah, so there's an error here. Hold on, that's 37. Yeah, this should be error, and this should be res. Okay, so error, and this should be test. Okay, save. That should work. So let's reload or try again. There you go. So this one is working. Let's go back. And let's try this one. Good. Okay. So as you can see, this one is working. So now that we managed to capture the value, oh yeah. Okay, so now that we managed to capture this value, the next thing we need to do now is to perform an update statement. So let's go back. Okay, to do that, we need to first work with our model. So always with our model. So from our model, so let's say from here, going to call movie that update by ID. So for that, we need to pass on the ID and the movie and the result. Okay. So from here, I'm going to apply this SQL query. And then we're going to apply the update query. So let's say update movies set title is equals to question mark, comma, description equals to comma or question mark, where ID is equals to question mark. And then comma here. Then enter. Okay, from this section here, I'm going to apply the values. So I'm going to call movie dot title. Take note, I'm passing it from here. So we need to pass that value. Then movie dot description. Then movie dot ID. Okay, so if that's the correct setup, now the next thing we need to do is to check whether there's an error and the response. Okay, this is a long typing type, so let's begin. So from here, you need to check if there's an error. Okay, so this is the error. So let's say I'm going to copy this one. Okay, so if there's an error, so we need to pass the error here. And I'm going to reverse this one here to here. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, also if res that affected rows is equals to 0. Okay. So let's okay, this will check if there's if the update did not update correctly. it will return a 0 value. So if that happens, we need to perform a results or return statement of the result. Let's say going to tell that a movie not found, and display as null. Then we hit return. Okay, so that's the next part. Now, if the value is successfully updated, the next thing we need to do is we need to apply the console or display the description like console update updated movie. Okay, and going to pass that value id plus to id and comma, let's say 1 2 3 movie. Okay, that should be the format. So to return that, let's say go to type result null, can simply copy this one. Okay, so that's the update part. Okay, cool. Okay, now that we already update our our model, so the next thing is we update our movie controller. So let's begin with our controller. Okay, from our controller, we perform exports that update. You know, to apply the function rec res. Okay, that's for the update in our controller. Okay, so the first thing we need to check is our body. If rec dot body is empty, if this is empty, then we're going to return a rest status of 400. Then we submit with a message of content cannot be empty. Okay, good. Now, from this point here, we're going to call our model. So to do that, we need to type movie dot update by ID, and we need to pass on the parameter. So rec dot params dot movie ID to new movie. To new movie. So this will be the new request body. Good. So okay. And from here to type the function error and data. So let's check first the error. Now, if this is an error, okay. Okay, if error that kind is equals to not found or no found. Okay, let's make sure that we should be not found. Okay, this is from the model, so make sure this is the same here, not found. Okay, then I'm going to return a status of 404, then send message so we can tell that not found movie with ID, let's say this one. Okay, so that's the first part. So movie, not one movie with ID, this one. Okay, so I guess that's one should be okay. Okay, the next one, else need to apply, we can copy this one. So from here, going to return a 500 status. So which means that we have an error updating. So error updating movie with ID, this one. Good. So, okay, the next error says that if there's an error with the update, this status will return. Okay, if there's no error, so we're going to apply the else. So from here, we're going to apply the res redirect. Okay, so that will skip. This will redirect to the main page. Ah, there's an error. Movie. Ah, this is from model 54. Okay. Let's check this one. Error is invalid left hand side assignment. Oh, why invalid? Res. This one should be here. Oh, that's weird. Find the condition where ID equals to here, and then movie, the title, movie description, ID, then res, error, then res, and this one. Oh, okay, this should be this one. Okay, that should work. Okay, cool. So that works. Okay, make sure always check this one. So this is one of the errors that we encountered a while ago. Now let's go back. Okay, so we have already update our controller. Now this one, we need to call that in our routes. Okay, so from our routes, we can copy this one here. This time, I'm going to apply the put command. Okay, or put operation. So from our put, movies, so going to remove this one here. Movies, movie ID, then the controller, update by ID. Or, no, not update by ID. So this should be update. So this should be update. Okay, so that should be it. So take note, this is a put method. Now, there's an issue with the express. In submitting a form, this one. Okay, when you submit a form, the only operations or method you can use is post and get. Now, to fix this problem, okay. Actually, this is a problem for all developers because since the post method will only applies only to post and get. To fix that problem, we can apply an override method. And that method is what you call of course, the method override. To do that, the first thing we need to do is, from our form, we need to type this one. Method is equals to put. Okay? You need to add this on your form so that this will apply the put method. But that's not all. So we also need to apply the server itself. So to do that, from our app.app, okay, we need to install another package for this work. So to do that, I'm going to cancel this one. So that method is npm install you need to install method dash override. And you need to save that. Okay, so this is the predefined package for the method override. So if you're performing a put and delete method, you should use this one so that our express will accept this kind of operation. Okay, good. Now that we have our method override installed, Going to play this one here. Then from here, I'm going to call that one. Let's say here, I'm going to apply cons method override. Then we need to pull that request or the required package. So that is method override. Okay, good. Now, once you call the method override, the next thing we need to do is we need to use that method. So let's say going to note this as method override with pause having this method. Okay, so to do that, we need to call app.use. Then we call the method override. Okay, from here, I'm going to override this portion here. This is the method. And for that method, going to apply the methods. This is methods. Okay. Then from our methods, we need to override our pause and get. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, so that should be it. So this is the type of override. So if you're using pause or delete method, this package will override and convert that to the necessary operation. So let's run again our server. Okay, good. So let's go back to our routes. Make sure that we are okay. So since we're performing a put method, so if I check our edit, we make sure that this is also a put method. Okay, so this is question mark underscore method equals to put. But even though we perform a pause command or method, this will override. Instead of pause, it will convert to put. So let's try our code. Let's go back. If I'm here, going to refresh our page. Let's say going to update this one. So this is a Disney movie. This is Guardian of the Galaxy. This is a Disney movie. Let's say 2021. And let's try. Submit. Okay, so we have an error. So why? Okay, let's examine our submission. Okay, the first one is we perform this one. So which means this submission is correct. So let's check our codes here. Okay. So first we need to ensure that our setup is correct. So movies value. Okay, so title is correct, description is correct, but the response is error updating movie with ID2. So why? So let's go back to our, let's start with our movie controller. So the section happens in here. For some reason, this one is not working very well. So let's check our movies model. Okay, this one here. So just to ensure that we are submitting a correct value, so update movies, set title equals to this one, or ID is equals to this. Okay, let's try a print statement. So from here, going to put a console.log just to ensure that we are receiving this value. Want to type s value. Okay, so we ensure that this one is submitting correctly. So let's try again. Let's go back here. Then submit. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so from here, so it seems this one is okay. So I think there's a submission value here. So let's check once more. Update movie, set title movie, where ID is this one. So let's scan one by one. Movies that we can copy this one. Doesn't matter, I guess. So let's say this. Okay, we need to ensure that we are receiving a correct value. Okay, let's go back here. Then submit. Okay, the first one is Guardian of the Galaxy. Disney movie. Here. So this is the problem. So this one here, the ID is not retrieving or submitting very well. So we need to check this one. So to do that, it's not on the controller or the model. We need to check it from our controller. Now, for some reason, this one is not capturing very well. Okay, so this is the portion. So first, we need to examine this movie ID. So how to know this one? For this one, I need to check our routes. Okay. So in here, I applied movie ID. So should be work if I copy this one and paste it here. So they're the same. Yeah, so they're the same. Okay. Let's okay, that's weird. This is update by ID, and this one is update by ID. Oh yeah, so this ID, movie, and result. So the first one is the ID and the movie and the result. Okay, so going to copy this one because this one has a problem. Then to apply a console.log. Okay, so this is one of the things that we need to be very careful when it comes to, especially if the code is already complicated. So from here, I'm going to submit. So as you can see, it submits the 2. So this one is correct. So this one is okay. So this one is okay. So what seems to be the problem? MB ID, MB request body. This parameter is correct. So let's check this body here. Okay. So we already checked this one. So this one is submitting, or the request value is correct. This time I'm going to check this one, the request body. So we need to see to it that this one is work as well. From here, I'm going to submit. There you go. So it means, yeah, so I think this one is still okay. Okay, so this one has no issues. So most probably the problem is in the model. So the ID is correct. Because I'm passing it from here. So instead of that one, I'll be getting this one. Should be here. Okay, because a while ago when I tried to check this one, that only returns the value of title and description. Since we already defined the ID and this one is displayed properly, we'll be using that here for comparison in this query here. Okay, so that should work. So going to comment this one here. And this one, okay, so movie title, description, and ID. Okay, so I hope that one's okay. So I'm going to submit this one. Submit. There you go. Okay, so good. So now we managed to update our value. So again, so this one only returns guardian. I wonder why. So let's go back. How about this one? Ooh. Okay, we need to check this one. Why is it returns only a few display? Okay, let's see. Input, so movie title. So let's reload. Edit. Oh, that's weird. Response here. Okay, let's check our data here. Combat. Okay, so this one returns the complete values. Text row. Title, Mortal Kombat. Okay. Let's check that first. Why is it returns only a small portion? So where is that? Where is that? Let's go back. That section is here. Movies, edit. Okay, so movies, edit. That was under content. Here, so this should be it. Movies, edit 1. So from our routes, this one. So movies controller pine 1. Movies controller pine 1. Okay, so this is the correct one. Oh, but there's okay. So I think this one is working because I can really tell because the value here displays a complete display. So possible it's our display form. It's not displaying very well. Or yeah, true. Title. Maybe the title. Let's check here. For some reason, this one, this here only display half of the value. That's really weird. Let's try another one. Let's create a new entry. Let's say we type Godzilla. Godzilla versus Kong. This is a Disney movie. Submit. Okay, so if I edit this one, same goes. Okay, let's examine. As well, ID, validate, value as well. Okay, so I'll be back for a while. I'm going to check why is it this only displays half. Okay, so now that I checked the problem is this section here. This is the input section. Since we're assigning a value in input text field, you should always put that in a double quote like this one. It means that we are receiving a string value or an input. So it should be put a double quotation here, both on this side here, so that this will return a full string. So what happened is a while ago, when I assigned this as a plain value, it split. So it detects that it is part of the properties. So let's check. So now that we fix this part here in the edit, so when we refresh this one, there you go. So let's check with other text value. So let's say this one. Okay, that works. And this one. Good. Okay, so that's it. Okay, good. So right now that we managed to perform the edit function, so the last thing is we're going to perform a deletion. Okay, so on deletion part, we need to add additional column here that represents the deletion button. So to do that, we need to go to our content. So from here, I'm going to copy this one here. Then going to perform delete. Going to replace this content here to delete. So let's refresh this one. Okay, good. So we have the edit and the delete. Okay, so let's begin. So for this one to work, we need to start again with our model. So for the model, okay, going to assign here. So we need to call movie.remove. Okay, so then I'm going to assign the ID and the result. Okay, for the query, first we need to assign the query sql.query, and from here we need to call delete from movies okay, delete from movies where ID is equals to question mark. Then we're going to submit or pass the value of the ID. And from here, let's say, going to pass the error and res. Okay, so that should do. Okay, so the first part is we need to get the error, the error. So we can copy from our previous example. So let's say this one, this is the error. Then paste it here. Okay, we just arrange this one. Now same goes. This is the same with the function of update. So I can copy this one here. And we can paste that in here. Okay, so if there are no values found, this will return a not found description. Now next, we can also apply this one here. Then we need to paste that in here. Now going to replace the content. Deleted movies with ID. Okay, so this is the ID. So I'm going to clear this one here. Okay, so from here, I'm going to return a response. Yeah, so basically that's the operations for delete. Let's check everything. Okay, good. So I guess this one's okay. We're going to call this one in our controller. Okay. Okay, from our controller, going to call exports dot delete. Then this is res. Okay, so from this point here, we're going to call our model. So this is remove. Okay. Okay, we can copy this value here. Okay. Then we're going to replace some of the value from here. So let's say this one. That's the movie ID. Then from here, I'm going to call the function data. Okay. Okay, so from here, maybe going to put this one here. Okay, much better. Okay, so the first thing we need to go is to check if there's an error. So this is similar to this one here. Yes, we can copy this one. Okay, so that's the first part. And second part, we can apply this one as well. Make sure you are inside this if condition. Okay, so you can replace this one here. Would not delete movie with ID this one. Okay, cool. So let's make sure this one is there. Okay, so if there's no error, we can perform an else statement here, and we're going to perform a res.redirect. Good. Yeah, so basically that's all the things we need. Now the last one is we need to apply this in our routes. So from our routes, okay, basically this is the same as, yeah, so the same with the update, but we need to replace this one as delete. Then from here, going to replace this as delete, and this one should be remove. Okay, just to make sure. It should be delete. So let's go back here, and this should be delete. So better, let's make it bigger. And from our controller, this should be this one. Okay, so capital delete. Okay, let's check our routes for the last time. Okay, so that should work. Now, let's go back to our content.hps. Okay. Okay. Okay, same goes here. What we did in our, as you recall, remember we put this one. So this will override the method of the put. Now same goes, we're going to apply this method to override the function of delete. So to do that, we're going to copy this one. And from our content, I'm going to paste that here. Then this method, I'm going to override and replace it with delete. Okay, so that should do. So let's try. There's an error here. Let's check. Missing. So this is movie controller 150. Okay, let's go in there. 115. Okay, so let's check. So this from here. This one. Oh, I'm missing this bracket. Okay, so functions okay. Okay, so let's save. There's one more. Missing argument. Okay, let's check again. So I'm missing a bracket or this one. This one is the closing for this one. For the remove. So save. Hopefully that should work. Cool. So yeah, so I guess this one is okay now. So let's try. Going to refresh this one. Going to delete Godzilla versus Kong. There you go. Okay, good. So that's it. So we managed to perform the full CRUD operation. But there's one thing I want to do for the last time. Let's say I'm going to replace this icon here so that we have a nice presentation. So instead of edit, I'm going to put an icon for the edit. Same goes for the delete. To do that, okay, so we're going to overwrite this display. So instead of apply this one here, I'm going to replace that with an icon. So this is how you replace an icon. So let's say in here, okay, in between this anchor tag, I'm going to put the icon for Materialize I class equals to material dash icon. Okay, so that's the first part. Then you need to close that tag. Close for I. Now in between this here, I'm going to put this icon. Border, should be border color. So let's save and let's try refresh that. Oh, okay. Let's check again. Should be the same. So material, okay. I class is material icons. So should be material icons. So let's try again. Oops. Okay, so not. So let's check again. Make sure that we have the correct setup here. I class equals to material dash icons. Okay. And then border color. Closing tag. Oh, that's weird. Let's split this up so that we have a clear display. Okay, so this should be better. Okay, so let's check again. Okay. Why is it the icon is not displaying? So material should be material dash icons and call the border. Yeah, so I guess it should work. Oh yeah. Okay, so late reaction. Okay, so guys, the first icon here, we managed to display. So next one, we're going to display this one as well. So to do that, let's say going to fix this one here so that we have a clear view. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this one here. Then paste it in here. Now for that icon, should be delete icon. Okay, so that's the class for that icon. So let's try. Refresh. Okay, so we need to remove this delete word here. To do that, we need to... Okay, so this should be inside. I'm going to transfer this one here and paste here, so that this icon should be inside. So same goes here. Now refresh. There you go. So yeah, so cool. Let's try one more. Test and submit. Okay, so let's update this one. My title, my description, and submit. Okay, cool. Then for the last time, I'm going to delete this one. There you go. Okay. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to fix from here before we go into end our session. Notice that this was already on top of the page. Then I simply want to move this a little bit so that when we perform our operation, it should not be on the topmost. So to do that, let's go back to our main. So in the main layout, okay, from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a CSS style to fix that. So far, there's no other way. So simply you can apply the CSS style for that. For the style. Okay, so since all our components are encapsulated in our container, we need to call that container. So let's say going to apply margin dash top, then let's say going to apply that as 20 pixel, and with a max width of 120 pixel, 1280 pixel, and a width of 90%. Yeah, that should work. So let's try this first. Let's see if this works. Okay, so let's try that one. Go back. Okay, there you go. So as you can see, we already managed to fix the tab space here. So if we click add new, same goes. And with the edit. Good. Okay, go back. Okay, so that's it, guys. Notice that we successfully completed our task. So from this point here, we managed to apply successfully applied Materialize in our form and successfully applied the MVC control structure. And also we end up with a beautiful design in our table. So what cool with this one is that this is a responsive table. So if you move this one for the last time, so notice here that all the fields or the header moves on this portion here and the value display in this manner. Same goes with the navigation bar. Okay, cool. Okay. From this point here, we can use this example on the next tutorial series. But for now, if you find this video informative, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And see you guys on the next video series. Cheers!